Maurice thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and it's just so laughable. Like, that is so far from the truth. Have you guys heard this saying, wisdom is chasing you, but you are faster? That is the perfect way to describe Maurice. The scene between Martell and Maurice was schooled. I absolutely cracked up hearing Martell laugh at Maurice because I don't know what Maurice is saying, talking about. I hit a pole and then I hit an animal and then I hit a tree. It's like, which one is it? All three? Like, what kind of luck do you have to hit all three, have a concussion, but you were all okay to be out again the next day, allegedly? It's either you're the luckiest person in the world to get away with little to no injuries, or you are straight out lying to us. Now, hey lovelies, welcome back to Reviews and Recaps. Let's talk about the latest episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. Please make sure you watch until the end. I will be talking about some of the key bits that I took out from this episode. I really want to get into really quickly Tisha and Nell, and then I want to talk about Maurice and Kimmy, and how it seems that Kimmy is no longer caping for Martell. I guess that's what happens when it's no longer Martell versus Mel, and now it's Martell versus your husband, okay? So we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about Martell and Maurice because I feel like there is so much I want to say about that. So make sure you listen until the end. Don't forget to like, share, hit that subscribe button and tap that bell button right next to it so you know every single time that I post or go live. And let's get into it. So the episode started with Tisha and Nell addressing the whole Tisha getting in Chris's face. Now, if you guys remember, Tisha got up and walked away. My impression when she walked back was like, who told her to go back? Did production say, honey, you better go back and have that conversation? You can't be walking off every single time. I just don't understand it. But she stepped out, came back in, and was like, well, Nell needs to talk to her properly and not raise her voice. Nell was not raising her voice. She was having a conversation with you, Tisha. You did not want to take accountability. And so that was that. I will say, when Tisha came back, I wish that Nell had continued to stand her ground, but it feels like Nell kind of just let it go a little bit. I did notice that Tisha started to get teary-eyed talking about the rumor of Marceau cheating. Here's my thing. And this is not because I don't have no empathy for her. This is my thing. If it is just a rumor and there is no truth to the rumor, and you trust your husband completely and believe whatever it is that he's saying to you, why are you crying? Why on earth will you get teary-eyed about a rumor that you know is untrue? You know your man ain't cheating. You know your man has never cheated. So why are you getting teary-eyed? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But it was interesting that Nell seemed to have softened after seeing Tisha, a little bit teary-eyed. I guess that's what happens. For me, my question is, why are you getting teary-eyed if you do not believe the rumors? But that's just how I feel. Now let's move on to Maurice and Kimmy. I cracked up at this scene, and I'll tell you why. Because Kimmy is one of those people who has always caped for Martell when Martell was treating Melody really badly. She used to say, oh, Martell is such a good guy. Oh, Martell is such a this. Martell is such a nice guy. Well, I guess this is what nice guys do. Nice guys throw straight pow at your husband. How do you feel about that? I do think it's so funny how Kimmy has completely changed her tune now. Now she's talking about, yes, when Martell is angry, he is not a good guy. I'm like, well, I thought he was a good guy all the time, honey. I guess not? Okay. All right, Kimmy. And then Maurice was like, have you ever tried to look at it from his perspective? I'm like, Maurice, are you okay? Are you okay? This man has talked about you and your brother having a train on a woman. And you think, and you're out here telling your wife if she has ever considered thinking about it from Martell's perspective. Are you okay? Is everything all right? These are the questions I have for you, because you can't be serious. You cannot be serious. You guys know I always say I feel like Maurice does not want Martell to expose whatever it is that Martell has on him, in my opinion, allegedly, because the way he acts like he is scared of Martell is crazy to me. He's always pandering to him, catering to him. But Kimmy was not having none of it. Kimmy was like, no. And the Martell sees him as an extension of his brother. Now, that is something that I agree with Kimmy about. I think that if Marceau and Martell were not going at it, I don't think that Martell would have exposed Maurice. I think that Martell is like, oh, I do not care. Oh, okay, you don't want to stand up for me in front of your brother? Then I'm going to put you in this mess. That is the impression that I get. But I don't think that Martell is generally going to come for Maurice directly unless something else happens that triggers that. This is just my personal opinion, but let me know what you guys think about that in the comment section below. Now, let's talk about the meetup between Martell and Maurice, because when I tell you that meetup had me gagging, I was not ready. I knew it was going to be some foolery, but I did not think that Maurice was going to end up telling us that he hits a pole, he hits an animal, and then hits a tree. There was no way I could have known that that would happen. But all I'm going to say is thank you, Maurice. Thank you for exposing yourself, because nobody believed you when you first said it. Nobody believes you now. It's even worse now, because a pole, an animal, a tree. Like, do you think we're kids? What is that? Now, let's back up to the way the conversation started. So Maurice first started off blowing smoke up Martell's A by telling him all these like kind of nice things about him and stuff. And then Maurice then says, oh, he feels like Martell has had a rough few months. Martell was like, no, he hasn't. When I tell you genuinely, that's when I started laughing. I even just laughed now because I could not stop myself. Like, I could picture the scene again in my head. Martell was like, no, he hasn't. Martell is like, I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about, but I am good over here. So basically, Maurice was trying to figure out, like, how did I get in it? Like, you were going on with Marceau and whatnot. Somehow I ended up catching some strays. So Martell basically said that when he put the trailer up initially, he was just waiting for Marceau to call him and squash it with him. But Marceau decided not to do that. And that's when he decided that, well, he's going to go ahead and post it. What gagged me was the way it then transitioned, right? Next thing, Maurice is like, do you know what happened with my DUI? I'm like, are you okay? How did that even like get into this conversation? And how did that just transition? So then he starts talking about he was with Kimmy and then had to drop off Kimmy. And then he was driving. Then he hit an animal, a pole, and a tree. Like, that sounds silly. I don't even know where that came from, but that is silly. If that is the best that you could come up with, Mr. Lawyer, sir, go back to the drawing board and get some better lies, because what in the heck is going on? Last season, you didn't want to talk about the DUI. This season, because it was dismissed, you now want to talk about it because you feel like being dismissed gives the impression that you're innocent. However, there are lots of people that were driving under the influence and have had their DUI case dropped on account of a technicality, like something that was meant to have been done procedurally that was not done. That's a technicality. That's you getting away with something that you genuinely did. That does not mean that you're innocent. So you want us to believe that despite being out with everybody all night, you weren't drinking, okay? And then yet you were so tired, I guess, that you ended up hitting an animal. What animal did you hit? You don't remember. Okay. And you hit a pole? Okay. Where was the pole? And where was the tree? All at the same time. And then you had a concussion. And then you ended up out the next night drinking. It's like all of this happened with a concussion? Yet you were out drinking, allegedly. Okay, let me hold your hand and tell you, I find that very hard to believe. Is it an animal? Is it a pole? Is it a tree? Can't be all three, first of all. Unless you have the worst luck in history to hit an animal, a pole, and a tree. And then my question is, how didn't you get seriously hurt? How were you hurt enough, right, to get some sort of treatment, and then you're out the next night? After hitting an animal, a pole, and a tree, I've never heard of anyone who was not under the influence of anything hitting all sorts of things. Unless some sort of seizure happened, something drastic like a heart attack behind the wheel or something, and then you hit whatever was in your way, maybe. But none of these things happened. You had a concussion and then still was able to be out partying and drinking. All right. Now, here's where I'll give Martell a little bit of a bone. Martell said and laughed in his face, and I was glad that Martell did that, because you cannot be serious thinking you're the smartest in the room, playing with our intelligence. You sound like a child. Martell basically said, you sound like my 9-year-old trying to come up with ish. And that is exactly how he sounded, because I don't get how this is the best story that an adult could come up with. You could have said you were not driving under the influence. You literally just hit something and you woke up, you had a concussion, something like that. Yes, sometimes people are tired behind the wheel. That doesn't mean they drank something. That could have been okay. But the fact that you thought it was okay to come tell us you hit an animal, a pole, and a tree is making it sound like you were under the influence of something, sir. If you weren't under the influence of something then, you must be under the influence of something now, telling us you hit an animal, a pole, and a tree. Like, where? How does that make any sense, sir? Like, that's the question I'm trying to figure out. So I absolutely loved Martell laughing in his face. I felt like that needed to happen. Now, this is the other thing that gagged me about the whole Martell and Maurice situation. They then started talking about whether or not the so-called interview was true. And Maurice is trying to let us believe that most of what he said was not true. I said, okay. If you're saying most of it was not true, which parts were untrue and which parts were true? And when Martell asked, didn't Marceau fly her in? He was like, I don't know what Marceau did. I'm like, oh, Marceau, that man is going to throw you under the bus if it is to save his A. So I hope you are ready. I hope you know that. So then Martell continues to say, well, Marceau had sex. You also did. And then Maurice starts asking the question, so what does my pee look like? What does it look like? What was the color of the carpet? It's like, sir, are you okay? Do you think this is really going to land? This is the bit that gagged me. Martell was like, are you not an attorney? Then sue me if I'm lying. Okay? When I say that was a drop mic moment right there, it was like, sue me if I am lying. Here's the reason I don't think Martell is lying. And it's not even because he said, sue me. The reason I don't think Martell is lying is because Martell, when he's lying, he be stuttering. Okay? You guys go watch it back. He be stuttering. He wouldn't be able to keep his lie straight. He would start talking about something, then go off on its tangent and tell on himself. Remember when he was trying to make it seem that Melody was cheating on him? I don't know if you guys remember the old clips. When he was trying to make it seem like Melody was cheating on him. And then when Melody started to give down so this happened at this time. That's when I first found out he had been cheating with her for 2 years. Then this happened and this happened. Guess what he did? In the same vein, he then changes the tune to say, well, so what should I think if she goes to the hotel, and stays for 2 days at a time? And then, the sex is different. Like, dude, please. You just said you knew for a fact that she cheated. You said she cheated and then I cheated. And I'm just like, dude, you're nuts. But this is what I'm trying to say. If you go back and watch that scene, you would see how he starts to it's like stuttering a little bit, or telling on himself, even in the same conversation. That's what Martell does when he's lying. The fact that in this scene, he did not stutter once. He did not do what he does with his hands His body language when he's lying, he didn't do none of that. He looks like he was comfortable sitting, comfortable. He then also said, sue me if I'm lying. Okay, like that is somebody that is telling you, I do not have nothing to lose. And there's probably more where that came from, sir. Don't play with me. That is the vibe that Martell was giving this man. And I feel like Maurice is definitely scared of him. What have you done, Maurice, allegedly? Because why does this man feel like he can sit in front of you and ask you to sue him if he is lying? That means he trusts the validity of what it is that he is saying. And I know Martell is a liar. Martell lies a lot. Yes, Martell lies for sport. Absolutely. However, in this situation, I feel like he's telling the truth because he doesn't have any of the signs where he starts stuttering and the but you were going to. He did not have all of that. Normally, that's the kind of vibe that he would have when he is lying. Okay, he seemed relaxed, calm. It wasn't like he was thinking about what to say. He had it together. And we know Martell is not that smart to have it all the way together if he's lying. And Martell is usually the one to tell on himself and did not do that at all in this episode. That is why I believe on this one, I feel like he is telling the truth. Now, I will say, I found it hilarious when Maurice decided to run it back to Kimmy and Marceau what happened. I'm just like, where's Tisha? Tisha does not want to hear no cheating. Tisha does not want to be part of it. I feel like Tisha low-key knows that Marceau probably cheated, allegedly. And she's just like, please don't involve me in the conversation to do with this. I do not want to even seem like I know anything about it. That is what that's the impression I'm starting to get. Because it's like, first you're getting teary-eyed earlier in the scene, then you're talking about marriages should be off limits. Honey, when you were talking about Melody and Martell's marriage, was that off limits? The show is called Love and Marriage Huntsville, honey. Your marriage is not going to be off limits. When you were coming at every other person's marriage, that was not a problem. People's relationships is not a problem to dig in, try to get to the bottom of things. But when it has to do with your marriage, you want to say, oh, people's marriages and children should be off limits. No, honey, if you're talking about my family, yours will never be off limits. Besides, you're on the show to show us the real, right? You're on the show to show us the real about your love and your marriage. So yes, it is the topic of the conversation. And it is going to continue to be the topic of conversation, ma'am. I don't know how else to break it to you, Tisha, baby. But you are on Love and Marriage Huntsville. That is what you signed up for, mama. That is what you signed up for. Anyway, that scene with Kimmy and Maurice and Marceau, the way Maurice ran it back, I'm like, why didn't you tell everybody that he said, sue me if I'm lying? Of course, you're not going to say that in front of your wife because you know what the truth is. You said most of it is not true. So what is true and what isn't, Maurice? Clear it up for all of us so we know what the truth is and what is fiction. Yes, you guys were all together. Who else was there? Was Arian there? Was the Big Back crew there? I think one thing that is very obvious is Marceau does not give a dang. Marceau feels like if Martell wants to burn the whole ish down, he should burn it. Because that's the thing. When someone has something over you, if you continue to pander to them, it's just going to be a situation where you're going to continue to have to act like a Maurice. And when they do some crazy ish, you have to be acting like their savior and trying to like make peace reign when you should not be tolerating the way he is moving. It should not be okay for him to be speaking on you and your PP like that, right? But of course, he is going to be speaking on it because you give him that opportunity. You give him that liberty. That's just what that is. Because you're not going to speak up because you don't want him to expose you, in my opinion. Now, let me know if you guys believe Martell or Maurice in the comment section below. What did you guys think of today's episode, and what would you rate the episode? Don't forget to like, share, hit that subscribe button, and let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye.